Good morning and welcome to Frontiers of Knowledge segment of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. Today happens to be a Hindu festival called Shivratri, and we are aware that almost every Indian festival is connected with luni-solar calendar. Considering what is happening in the solar system on that day, the people are expected to do something that is conducive. The solar system is actually working like a potter's wheel to generate this body, the cosmos, and everything that happens to the solar system happens to you in some way or the other. So, the celebration of Shivratri is basically understanding how to look at the world the way Shiva would look at it with the three eyes, and then experience the sublime state of Shivolam. Shivoham is a state, I am Shiva, I am the creator, the destroyer. And that happens when you are able to understand and look at the world in a new manner. So the tradition of understanding what's happening in the solar system on a given day and makes you understand how the things are crafted. And one thing very interesting, possibly people are not aware, that this day planet is spinning with a certain precision. It's not simply rotating on an axis. There's always a wobble that creates a certain situation on the planet. So that wobbling is always there. But on the night of Mahashivratri, for some inexplicable reason, and there's no reason, and it has been documented by the geophysicists, they say on this night there's a natural upsurge of energy. And this natural upsurge of energy is especially in Northern Hemisphere, not north of equator. And now why is there a huge natural upsurge? Nobody has been able to determine. But it's curious that this is the day, one day in a year, when there is a natural upsurge. So you can consider it to be a sign of spiritual renewal. And in fact, this day, according to the mythology, is a commemoration, celebration of the day, where the task performed by the god at the end of every cycle of the time is complete. And cycle after time ensure that human suffering due to spiritual ignorance and sorrow reach their acme. Shiva, the father of all souls, incarnates the word and the suffering and ushers in a word of peace, bliss, beauty, and plenty. And if you're aware, in the pantheon of Hindu god, a large number, innumerable, there's one god who is outstanding, and he alone can perform the task. He is free from all bondage and therefore capable of liberating others. So the liberation, I'm not talking in the sense of spiritual one, or the religious one. I'm talking in the way of liberating from the point of view that your ignorance, the bounds of ignorance, the fetters of the chains, they are broken. The others in the Hindu pantheon are deities. Shiva is not a deity. Now, there are three main cosmic functions of the Supreme Being, which are accepted by all systems of the Indian philosophy: the creation, the preservation, and the dissolution. And Kashmir Shaivism, however, accepts two additional functions, which is nowhere there else. One is concealment, and the other is anugrah, that's grace. Now, grace is something which has an echo in Roman Catholicism. When you commit a sin, you go, confess, you are redeemed, and after redemption, you get grace. Here also, there's nigrah, concealment, and after nigrah is anugrah, that is grace. So, the creation, the preservation, then the concealment, then grace, anugrah, and then dissolution, that's the end. And the total absence of duality, which enable the upsurge of energy in the Northern Hemisphere, which is, as I said, documented by geophysicists, is something which needs to be understood. As a matter of fact, the limitation of the absolute consciousness gives rise to the first tendency towards self forgetfulness and a bliss of pure I consciousness. Now, I'm not going again by the religious tones, but I'm going by the cosmic tones which underlie every human being cut off from the veneer of the pure religiosity. The limitation of the absolute consciousness is a first tendency towards self forgetfulness and connectivity with the nature. Now, when this happens, the difference between the cosmic consciousness is a pure creation of the human mind, and individualized consciousness is a pure creation where man supersedes other creations. The power of consciousness, Shakti, imposes a limit on even God's power of omniscience, omnipotence, and creates a sense of differentiation. And this sense of differentiation elevates you to the level of a supreme being. Isn't that something which is acceptable to those who do not accept God as an agency, external agency? Because here the individual is being elevated and is a pure consciousness within you that is the prime motivator. The Shiva, after whom Mahashivratri is named, the Supreme Shiva, is the process of enacting his drama of manifestation with myriad names and forms. Volition is basically the mind of human being. His undifferentiated state conceals his true nature, which is pure awareness and pure bliss. The individual soul and operates in the phenomenal world at three levels. Now, the three eyes of Shiva are the three levels of the operation of the human mind. And those three levels of consciousness, waking, dreaming, and sleeping. So, waking, dreaming, sleeping, these are the three levels. And if you remember, I talked one day that the psychiatrists also say that a human mind works at these very three levels. So, from the psychiatric point of view, as well as from the religiosity point of view, they are identical. And this aspect of Shiva, which is your consciousness, has the power to liberate you by eradicating the obstructions, removing the impediments, and tearing open the veil of secrecy. As a matter of fact, this opens an opportunity for the souls to work out their salvation, and that is anugrah, that is grace. You're devoid of all selfishness. According to Kashmir Shaivism, which I think is the height of philosophy but has been ignored. Param Shiva is spontaneously realized by the individual soul when the human consciousness is able to see the form of Shaktipat, the awakening of the dormant capabilities. Now, the so-called obscurers call it Kundalini. Waking the Kundalini. Kundalini is nothing but your consciousness waking up. The intense desire to attain mastery of your consciousness implies that you have got the capability to crash all impediments. And the awakened Kundalini begins to rise the Shushma, the central nerve of the seeker, toward the highest spiritual and conscious center of cranium, bringing in the spiritual evolution at the highest stage. Now, if you are religiously oriented, you can go in for deep meditation, but the end is the same. This is the process of assimilation. And I do not call it, I call it the process of manifestation. And when you reach that stage, you experience a sublime state of Shivam. I'm Shiva. I think, therefore I am, said Descartes. The same thing. You think, you perceive, you are able to have your consciousness, and therefore you are. Now, what happens is we are accustomed to seeing people and the world with two eyes. Now, is that okay? But in science, we are talking about 3D printing. We talk about the fourth dimension, the fifth dimension. But when we see people, we see them only at two levels with two eyes. So Shiva has three eyes, and that is unique. Basically, the whole purpose of Shivratri is to enable you to achieve the eternal bliss, and that is by seeing the three eyes. And three eyes are not basically physical, they are the three eyes of your consciousness. And the three eyes of the moon are the Shiva, according to Vedastra Shiva Storam, are the sun, the moon, and the fire. What does it simplify? When we refer to the sun, moon, and fire as three eyes of Shiva, our focus is on one thing, light. All three are the sources of light. And they are the illuminators of the whole world. So if you are able to perceive things in light, you can identify. You cannot see things in the dark. And even though light is a common factor, now this is very interesting. Light is a common factor, but each has its own speciality and quality. Fire has the ability to burn. It gives you light, but it burns as well and reduces things to ashes. So it has twin qualities, light and heat. The sun is bright and brilliant, but the light does not burn the objects, it illuminates them. Conversely, moon's light has a cooling, peaceful quality. So Shiva views the world with these three eyes, and the human consciousness, if it can reach that level, which it can, has the same capability. When distressed, sorrowful humans approach you, you look at them with the moonlight, pleasing and consoling eyes, and that is what today we call empathy. So, as a human being, we need empathy. When we get knowledge, our eyes become bright. That quality is associated with sun. Comprehension is associated with life. You see, even normal discourse we say when we understand things, oh, I was in the dark, but now I see it as clear as the daylight. That is the sun. And In the darkness, a flashlight illuminates a limited area. But sunlight doesn't have a limited area, it sees the whole world in a flash. So can you. So I'm trying to connect that you have got a Shiv-like quality. And then fire has the capacity to give light, but it also burns. So we look at the people in three different ways. We look at the whole world in three different ways. When we are angry, we look as though we are ready to burn to the object of our anger. Agni Drishti, the sight of anger. When we look at someone we love, we have Chandra Drishti, moon eye. We are loving, pleasing, consoling, reassurance. And Surya Drishti, the sun light, is the eye of the teacher that bestows knowledge and enlightens us. So there's another interpretation, basically, that it is karma that are giver, giver of the fruits of action. Karma, the fruit of your action. And that is that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. It connotes justice. So, what's the quality of a judge? He should have three eyes. Nayadrishti, the eye of objectivity. The verdict of the punishment meted out must be in keeping with the law alone. So here, a judge is an outsider, but he has to dispense justice. So you are also in the capacity to judge, but if you only judge without compassion, the sentence would be too harsh. But if your compassion is the only consideration, it will result in anarchy. So your judgment has to be Jnana Drishti, based on discrimination. Imagine the whole life we have got to be just, we have got to be compassionate, we have got to have the sense of discrimination. These are the three eyes of Shiva. It is not eyes opening. The eye of justice, equality, justification, compassion, what is called karuna, and sense of discrimination. The subtle nuances of right and wrong have to be differentiated. Now, Shivratri is basically a reminder that the dispenser of justice, and justice is not only in court of law, it's everyday intercourse. You meet a person, you judge him. So basically, the fruits of action, softened by justice, compassion, and assessment with discretion of knowledge. Now, if you can develop those capabilities, then you have reached the state of Shiva, that you are Shiva. But if you want to have the eternal bliss, you need the three eyes of vision, three visions: justice, compassion, discrimination. And these are what makes you what you are, a Homo sapien, the epitome of creation, a real human being of the level of Shiva himself, the creator. So this is the day when we have got to see to develop those capabilities so that we can have a real sublime life. Think about it, act on that. Thank you.